Hi there, welcome back to the YouTube channel. Really hope you've hit the subscribe button at this stage, but if you haven't, go and hit it now. You can hit the like and dislike button depending what you think of the video. But if you do dislike it, leave me a comment as to why you dislike it, yeah? And if you like it, leave me a comment as to why you like it. You know, more the merrier. Need the feedback. Anyway, today's deck is something of a colour pairing that's in my own heart. At heart, I am a Simic mage. I have played Simic in Standard, in Pioneer, in Modern, dabbled in Legacy with it a long time ago. And it's one of my preferred colour pairings that I really do like to play, even in Commander nowadays. This Commander is one that I've been waiting to get hold of, and I was lucky enough to pick one up in a draft I did a Double Masters 2022 a while back. So, if you know what was in Double Masters and you know what your Simic colours are, you probably already know what Commander I'm talking about today. But for those of you who don't, today's Commander is Ezuri, Claw of Progress, 2 green and blue for a 3/3 Phyrexian Elf Warrior. I'm not sure if Phyrexian is going to become more applicable shortly, but we'll see what happens with the next set when it comes out. Has a nice couple of ability. Well, has one triggered ability, one ability that happens in combat. So the triggered ability is whenever a creature with power 2 or less comes onto the battlefield, you get an experience counter. And then at the beginning of combat, depending on how many experience counters you got, depends how many +1/+1 counters you can put on a creature you control. Yeah, it's kind of strong. Now, usually with my Simic decks, I tend to go down the token route, or I tend to go down the let's make lots of permanent things. On this deck, on this channel, there's some deck techs around Adrix and Nev. There's also some deck techs around Ivy from one of the newer sets. And I really enjoy playing them, but Ezuri is one I've been on about doing for a while, and it isn't until now that I've actually been able to get one of these in real life, and so therefore I've started doing the deck for it. And this is what the deck looks like. Not just on MTGO, where you'll see me on my Twitch stream. I hope you saw that as well, so go and drop me a follow there as well. But in real life, this is one of the decks I'll be playing at my local club. So, without further ado, this is what the deck looks like. So, ta-da, deck. Anyway, mana base. Let's start there. Let's start with the bit we all need to know about. Well, probably don't need to know about. Blue-green lands all the way through. I've put both castles in because I think they're quite interesting in this type of deck. Flooded Grove, Command Tower, Hinterland Harbour. I've put Nykthos in here because we do have quite a lot of permanents that stay in play, and it's probably going to give us a bit of a mana ramp at some stage. Obviously, if I was rich enough to afford a Gaia's Cradle in real life, this would be Gaia's Cradle. If you have one in real life and you're building this in real life, you might want to put Gaia's Cradle in. The MTGO version, yes, I can put Gaia's Cradle in here, but I've taken it out because this is what I'm building in real life. And these are decks about what me build real life, me enjoy. Yep, so that was really bad English, but never mind. The rest of it is all the other dual lands you can think of. Temple of the False Gods in as well. We've also got Yavimaya, Cradle of Growth in just to help out with the green side of things. But everything else is here. Reliquary Tower I've mentioned. The one thing I did put it in. Yeah, I did. Temple of the False God. There we go. I thought I'd put it in. I was going mad. Rest of the ramp. Mox Tantalite, Soul Talisman, Soul Ring, Arcane Signet, both versions of Diamond, Talisman of Curiosity, and of course, Solemn Simulacrum. That's the main sources of my ramp for this deck, and that's what the deck's going to play against. But what we want to do is obviously maximise the number of +1/+1 counters we're getting. So there's quite a few cards in here we're doing with that, and there's a few cards that are going to support that theme. But what I will point out is most of the creatures, and I say most because there's a few that aren't, but most of the creatures have power 2 or less when they come into play. So whenever you've got Ezuri in play and you'll cast 99% of the time when you're casting one of the creatures from the deck, you're going to be getting those experience counters you want to make your creatures bigger. So we're going to try and support the +1/+1 theme a little bit with this as well. So here we go. So we've got Birds of Paradise, Burgeoning, and Hardened Scale. Birds of Paradise, early drop, nice bit of ramp. Burgeoning, whenever an opponent plays land, we get to put one of our hand into play, which will give us a little bit of ramp in the early game. Doesn't really work in the later game, but it might do with a little bit of luck with what we've got coming up. Hardened Scales gives us an extra +1/+1 counter when we start chucking them around. And Elixir of Immortality is here as normal, just to make sure I can get everything back into my library if everything gets destroyed by someone or something. So, over to the creatures, going into the 2 drops. Cameo the Crescent Moon. Yes, everyone else gets a benefit before you do, but it's a 1/3, which means if you play this after Ezuri's in play, you get your experience counter. In combat, you can make it a 2/4, which makes it a little bit harder to kill, and which means you should get a card draw when it gets back round to your turn. Durable handicrafts in. We can pay that extra mana to put a +1/+1 counter on a creature if we want to. We don't have to do this, but you know, the nice ability of this is the 5 and a green and sack it to put a +1 on each creature we do control. So I quite like that plan, hence why it's here. Farseek for some little bit of ramp. We can go and find a breeding pool with it, for example. Yeah. Don't think, did I put the others in? Yeah. Rhinewood Falls is in, and somewhere down here, I'm really hoping I remember to put it in. No, maybe I didn't. No, I didn't remember to put the other one in. Anyway, probably haven't got it in real life. That'd be why. Right. So, Farseek, Gala's Greeters. Nice little way to gain some life as your creatures come into play. Also, again, it's a 1/1, so triggers Ezuri when it's in play. Incubation Druid I want to mention here. I think this deserves its own little bit of make you a little bit bigger and talk about it. If you've got Ezuri in play, you play this. You get an experience counter if you haven't got any already, and then you can instantly put those +1/+1 counters on Incubation Druid and ramp your mana up. May seem simple to old hands at Commander, but some newer players may not miss that interaction. They may think they still have to do the adapt. You don't. Just get a +1/+1 counter on it any way you can to start producing that extra mana, which could be really helpful with this deck. I just wanted to point that out. Sorry if I'm teaching you how to suck eggs. Apologies. Right. Lotus Cobra gives you some ramp. Paradise Druid gives you ramp. Sylvan Carotid gives you ramp. Combine Guild Mage is also here. This turn, each creature you control enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it. That's quite nice if you're not too worried about getting your Ezuri trigger. If you've got like 5 or 6 experience, you don't really need to worry about it so much. And having this in play to do that is quite nice. Also, moving your counters around can help you sometimes in combat. You can do this at combat speed. It may be that you can save a creature and let one die you're not really worried about. Bear that in mind when you're playing the Combine Guild Mage. Growth Spiral, draw, ramp. Lonis, because whenever another token creature enters the battlefield, we get to investigate. So I'm not going to complain about that, because card draw is something we need in here. And if the worst comes to the worst, we can just sacrifice all those clues we're generating to go and nick something from someone else. Lonis has also got his own deck tech on here, so you might want to go and have a look at that. Thrasios Triton Hero usually turns up in CEDH decks as one of the partner pairs. It's just in this deck for a bit of fun because it's a 1/3 that helps me do a little bit of drawing, and that's why it's here. No other reason apart from that it triggers Ezuri when it hits play, so that's why it's here. Azusa Lost But Seeking gets those nice land drops on the go. Beastmaster Ascension gives you a really good way of winning the game. Chances are you'll have a whole load of cheap creatures in play that aren't very big compared to what your opponents are playing. Attack with 7 of them as soon as you can. This gets all the triggers on it and they become very big very quickly and very threatening to your opponents. My replacement for Gaze Cradle I mentioned earlier is Growing Rights of Immerloch. I've obviously got these in real life. I had these back in the day from Ixalan. So yeah, they're expensive now. I know they're going up in price, but if you've got them, play them. Jara, Friend of the Forest is purely in because it does mean our tokens you control have tap, add green mana. If we're making clue tokens, which I think we might be with Lonis, I understand that those clue tokens will then tap for green mana. I may be wrong because it just says tokens. It doesn't say token creatures. So hopefully I'm right and I'm not making a fool of myself. So we'll see. There is one other card that I'm hoping that does work with, which is Bootlegger's Stash. Because, you know, tap the lands, make the tokens, and then we can tap them instantly for green mana. If I've read it right. If I haven't, I've just made a complete fool of myself, and I'm sure someone will tell me in the comments down below. Managorger Hydra is lovely. Ezuri's in play. This comes in play, gives you experience counter. You can put the +1/+1s on it. And as soon as your opponents start casting stuff, you're just going to hold them off and do it that way. Ruminate Excavator. Play the land cards from our graveyard. We haven't got that many ways to go and get stuff out of our graveyard while I'm thinking about it. No. So we might take this out right now before we get any further than this, because that was a bad card choice. So what we will do, because I own one of these as well, so I'm not putting anything in I don't own. I'm going to drop in a Heroic Intervention and I'm going to take out the Excavator. I think originally in my original build I had sack lands in it. There's none in this deck on here at the moment or in real life, so we can take it out for now. Right. Spore Web Weaver I really do like. Protection from blue, or Hexproof from blue, reach. And whenever you deal damage you gain life and create a sapling token. Thank you very much. Like that. Continue onwards. Bow and Nylea makes all our creatures a little bit more difficult to block because they are quite small most of the time, and when you attack with them, giving them death touch means your opponents are less likely to block them. Nissazin just to give us some plant tokens, and then hopefully at some stage we'll hit the -2 and put a load of +1/+1s around, or you know, whenever you gain life, you draw X cards where X is number of lands you control. If you can get to 7 on it, you're doing really well. Edric, Spymaster of Tressin because we need to draw the cards. Hadaina's climbs in to chuck some +1/+1 counters around, so you know, with hardened scales it's quite nice. But it's also a nice little win condition when you get it to flip, and you get to do that whole +X/+X, whereas it's power and it gets flying. It makes a lot of people very upset very quickly. Yeah, it's blue-green, Oko's in. Yeah, I'm just going to stress over that. Shardless Agent, nice little way to cascade into some of the other creatures we control, or some of the other things we may need, like our Talisman, our Diamond, Soul Ring, Elixir, one of the cheap spells, so that's why it's here. One of the first creatures that's power greater than 2 is Uro, but it's a blue-green deck. You got to play Uro now in blue-green deck. Yeah, okay, exiling it's going to cost you some cards out your graveyard, fine. But, you know, 3 life and a land in a play, you can't complain too much. Moving on from Uro, Life Crafter's Gift. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature, then put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control with a +1/+1 counter on it. That's a lot of talking about +1/+1. However, it's instant, it's 4 mana, it will save some of your creatures in combat. Do it if you have to, and I like it. Oracle will die just so we can play with more lands off the top of our library. Works really well with Azusa. I've got Parallel Lives in. This may be a deck where you don't need Parallel Lives. We haven't got that many ways of generating tokens, but you know, it works quite nicely with Lonis if you need it to. If you are getting attacked regularly, you know, Spore Weaver gives you an extra sapling token. You could probably take it out. I've left it in for now just in case I decide it's going to be good. I'm not sure. I need to try the deck out in real life with it in or not. So, but it's also a nice way of making your opponents target this because they panic like mad when they see it. So, you know, it might be that they disenchant this or exile this instead of something more important to you, like, you know, one of your signets, talisman, whatever. Bear it in mind. Toski's in. Might as well get the more card draw in. Beast Whisperer for extra card draw. Still got power less than 2. Leyline of Abundance. At some point, you're going to have a lot of creatures that produce mana. This doubles the mana they produce, and then you can get to 8 mana really easily. Chuck +1/+1 counters around everywhere. It's great. Triumph of the Hordes is our very cheesy win condition. If we've got a significant number of big +1/+1 creatures, giving them all Infect and Trample and an extra +1/+1 until the end of turn really does mean you win the game quite quickly. Be careful if anyone hits you with discard though, because if they see this, they'll kill you instantly in case they think you've got some way of getting it back. The only way we've got of getting it back is Elixir of Immortality, and that goes back into the deck. But yeah, Triumph of the Hordes is a bit of a frowned upon card sometimes, so bear that in mind. Check what you're playing. Adrix and Nevzin. Again, mainly because it does produce the odd token here and there, and its Ezuri's ability means we get the nice little experience counter. Likewise, Cowdale's in. This is not too bad. We do draw some extra cards every so often, especially with Cammy out, or if we've got Solemn Dies for some reason, and getting that extra mana bumps quite nice. At the end of the day, this is going to be a 4 mana 2/3 that taps every turn for 1 colourless mana, so we're not going to complain too much. Rashimi, Eternity's Crafts in. We like drawing cards. We like looking at the top card of our library. We can play something if it costs less. And if not, we get an extra card in our hand. Solemn Sim, you've seen it enough. Defiler of Dreams and Defiler of Vigor in just to reduce the cost of everything. Yes, we do have to pay life for it, so be careful of it. But, you know, +1/+1 counters or, you know, a card draws quite nice even if we don't use their special abilities on booth. Tendershoot Dryad. Yes, 2/2 Ascend. We like this. Get the saplings going up, and that really does work well with Parallel Lives, which is another reason we have Parallel Lives in the deck. But it's not the be-all and end-all for this deck. We are not producing mass tokens in this deck. Just really tend to shoot Dryads every so often with saplings. Incremental Growth. Then put a +1/+1 counter on one creature, 2 +1/+1s on another one, and 3 on a third one. It's quite nice if you get the 3 off onto the Defiler of Dreams. You know, getting a 7/6 in the air really does upset people quite happily. Seedborn Muse, just so we can untap everything in case we get things locked down. But it does mean we can scry every turn if we need to, or we can, there's no real instance creatures that we use Castle Garenbrig with, but scrying every turn with Castle Vantress or with wherever it is, Quandrix Campus is quite nice, and we get to do it every turn once the Seedborn Muse is in play. Shamanic Revelation, just so we can draw the cards, and we should be getting a lot of life off this. We can have a lot of creatures with power 4 or more because of the +1/+1 counters being chucked around. I decided to play Tamiyo Completed because I picked one up in a draft and I wanted to try it out in a Simic deck, and this was the first Simic deck I picked up. Is it going to work in here? I don't know, but tapping down a creature or an artifact could be quite relevant. And if we can get up to the -7 and get the Notebook, a legendary colours artifact token, with spells you cast cost 2 less than tap to draw a card, I will be happy. Bootlegger Stash, I've already mentioned it with Parallel Lives, you know what it does. Agent of Treachery is nice because obviously we get the +1/+1 counter, plus the extra experience counter from Ezuri, and we get to nick something that's important to someone. Just be careful if you nick one of their creatures. Don't forget they might get it back somehow, so don't put any of your +1/+1 counters on it from your experience counters because you'll be in trouble. Chroma's Memorial's the other win condition in the deck. Just makes all your creatures ridiculously complicated to block and kill. Kamal's a third win condition. Basically, every combat you get to have on our turn, you get to get the overrun ability if you can keep Kamal alive. Yes, it's a little bit complicated that it's a 5/5, so you don't get a trigger from Ezuri. But if we've got a lot of mana kicking around, turning all our lands into 1/1 elemental creatures with vigilance, indestructible, and haste, and then giving them +3/+3 and trample means you have a lot of 4/4 attackers that are going to upset people. Especially if the turn before you play Kamal, you might have got Chroma's Memorial down. It's good. Last few cards are just a bit of fun for me because I like playing these cards in real life when I'm playing a game. Nissa, Steward of Elements, just for the scry ability. It's very nice, and if we can do the -6, we're all well and be it, but I'm using it for the +2 and the 0 a lot of the time. Genesis Wave, because it's Genesis Wave. I'm playing a green deck. You'll see in a lot of my green decks that Genesis Wave appears, so bear that in mind. The Great Henge, just because I do own one in real life, and you're going to make it very cheap, and it does get the little bit of life gain, a little bit of card draw. Thank you very much. I'm happy with that. And the final one, the Great Aurora. You don't see it that often played on MTGO because people tend to get upset with it. So I've cast this, I've seen it cast against me. I've stayed in the game when it's been cast against me and the rest of the table has quit apart from the person casting it. And when I've cast it, I have had people just go, nope, not playing this anymore. Goodbye, your beard. I don't think it's that beardy card. It's like a 9-mana sorcery. It's really difficult to cast, but if you get it off, it's really good fun watching everyone go, especially in real life, which is, like I say, where this deck's mainly going to be played. So that's it. That's my take on Ezuri, Claw of Progress. I hope you enjoyed the video. I've tried not to talk too long, but it's the way it goes sometimes. This has been a little bit longer than normal, but I'm hoping you've hit the like button. I'm hoping you've hit the subscribe button now, definitely. Whatever you do, if you hit the like or the dislike button, leave me a comment as to why you don't like it. Tell me what I'm doing wrong. Tell me what I've missed. Tell me if you're going to go and try and build it in real life yourself. And hopefully you'll see me play this on stream very soon. Don't forget to follow the Twitch thing. Take care, and hopefully I'll meet you on stream soon. Bye.